As you plan your summer vacation or your family vacation this summer, you may find it a good time to consider a difficult but most important question. That is, who will take care of your children in the event of an accident if something happens to you? Well, we have some simple advice for busy parents about choosing a guardian for your kids. And joining us is the author of Wear Clean Underwear, family, financial, and legal expert Alexis Neely. Yeah. So why the humorous title, Wear Clean Underwear?
Well, we had to take the fear out of the subject. So many people are afraid of talking about this subject, and it doesn't have to be something scary. And, you know, I don't know if your mom did this, but my mom always told me, God forbid you're in an accident, Alexis, wear clean underwear.
My mom always said that. Always wear clean underwear.
Yes, and so as a parent now, wearing clean underwear may not be enough. Now there's other things you need to do, so we're going to help parents figure out, can you go commando? What a simple thong do, or do you need that full Spanx coverage?
You might need the full Spanx coverage.
Yeah,
don't you think? Okay.
Yeah, I think most people do.
So we're talking about naming a guardian, right, for your kids in the event of your untimely demise.
Yes.
Why is that so important to name a guardian?
Well, if you don't name a guardian for your kids legally in writing, it's not just enough to tell people, okay, you're going to take care of my kids if something happens, right? You've got to do it legally in writing, because if you don't, a court is going to decide who raises your kids if anything happens to you. And that judge and that court doesn't know you, doesn't know what's important to you, and so you need to do that yourself.
Is it good to pick a family member, perhaps?
Not always. I have a lot of clients who don't pick family members. They feel like their friends are more family than their family, and that's perfectly fine. If you are going to pick a friend, then you absolutely have to put that in writing, because the court's not going to choose a friend over a family member.
Right. Now, doesn't a will provide the protection you need, or is that not enough?
That is not enough. First of all, where is your will going to be when something happens to you? So that's really not going to be enough. Plus, a will is going to ensure that the court is going to be involved respecting your money. If you pass your assets, by the way, through a trust instead of through a will, you can keep everything private, out of the court process, and ensure that your children receive your money when you want them to, totally protected, and that there's immediate access.
I received some very smart advice years ago when my kids were very young, and I do have a will and trust.
Good.
I set one up a long time ago.
So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Now, what the will is going to do, it's going to name guardians for your kids for the long term. But what I find is that most parents are making at least one of 6 common mistakes.
Yeah, let's talk about those mistakes. Number one mistake you say is naming a couple as a guardian.
Yes. So a lot of times people are naming a couple to serve as guardian, but not indicating what should happen if something happens to one of the people in that couple. So I might name my sister and my brother-in-law. But what if my sister's in an accident with me? Do I really want my brother-in-law raising my kids? No. Probably not.
Let's hope he's not watching right now.
Yeah. I don't actually have a brother-in-law, so it's okay. And then the second one is that parents are oftentimes not naming enough people. So they might name one guardian. But what if something happens to that one? You need to have backups named. What if that person can't serve?
Right.
The third thing, Spencer, is that people are naming people based on financial resources. You don't want to consider the financial resources of your guardian. That's up to you to decide. That's up to you to leave behind enough financial resources through savings or life insurance. You don't have to worry about your guardians having that money.
And you also say only having a will is one of the biggest problems. We talked about that earlier, but it's good to reemphasize that.
Right, because that ties into this issue of the financial resources. If you only have a will, you're not really providing for the financial resources in the right way. You want to decide who takes care of the money you leave behind, not leave that up to a court, and you don't even want it to have to go through the court. Pass it through trust, let it all be protected and totally private. That's the most important thing.
Now, many people you say are smart enough to think about naming a guardian, but they don't give additional thought to think about excluding people they would not want to take care of their kids.
What I often find is that everybody has at least one person they would never want raising their kids.
You're right, yeah.
And so if that person is a family member, you might want to confidentially exclude them. You don't want to tell them, hey, you've been excluded, you're not taking my kids. But you can do that confidentially, so they would never find out unless they actually tried to challenge your guardian nomination.
Now, you mentioned something earlier about not naming a guardian, or naming a guardian only for the long term.
Yes.
So what else should we be considering here?
So you want to make sure you're not just naming someone for the long term. I realized this when I named guardians for my kids. I'm a lawyer. I had set up a will. And then I realized, well, everyone is on the East Coast. Coast. What's going to happen in the short term if something happens to me? Where is my will going to be? So we name guardians also for the short term. You choose people who live within 20 minutes of you, who are going to be able to show up right away. You give them the legal documentation that they would need to have in hand. And I carry this little ID card in my wallet. And this ID card lists out all of the short-term guardians, and it says, I have minor children at home. This is who you should contact if anything happens to me. And
where do you get one of these?
Well, this you can actually get everything that I've talked about today and really a deeper understanding of it on a free website. It's called kidsprotectionplan.com.
Right.
At kidsprotectionplan.com, you can actually create free legal documents to name guardians for your kids. I'm on a mission to make sure that 100% of American parents name guardians for their kids.
So much of this can be accomplished on your own without an attorney?
Some of it can, yes. If you don't own any property and you're not really worried about how the money will pass, you can absolutely name guardians on your own. I always recommend that you have what you've created reviewed by a lawyer. Actually, on that website, kidsprotectionplan.com, once you create the legal documents, you can get that reviewed by a lawyer for free. So it's all built in.
One quick question, Alexis, about something rather touchy, and that is, as a couple is deciding who should have guardianship, how do you get around the touchy issue of whether it should be this person's mom or this person's dad or you know, the wife's sister or their husband's brother? How do you resolve that struggle?
If there's conflict between the husband and wife, and you do really need to come to a conclusion and a resolution about that, if there's conflict, you want to bring in an objective third party who's going to be able to take the emotion out of the situation.
Right.
And also on that website, you can go through a 3-step process on how to choose the right guardians.
Got it. Good information, and there's a link on our website that'll take you to that website.
That's
Alexis, thank you so
exactly right.
much.
Great.
A pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much.